Modern education presents Aristotelian logic as a strict mathematical tool used exclusively for rigid proofs and preserving truth. We isolate it from the messy realities of human emotion, rhetoric, and art. But the 10th century Islamic philosopher Al-Farabi inherited a different tradition. He studied the Alexandrian Neoplatonic syllabus, a curriculum that grouped Aristotle's writings on rhetoric and poetry directly alongside his treatises on formal deduction. Al-Farabi repurposed the Greek syllabus into a universal cognitive framework. A mathematician demonstrating a scientific theorem, a politician navigating a heated debate, and a poet reciting lyrical verses, all run on the exact same underlying logical hardware. To understand how this works, we have to reconstruct Al-Farabi's logic from first principles. We will trace it from the silent, pre-linguistic mind, map it onto the strict syntax of the Arabic language, and scale it up to explain all human communication. For Al-Farabi, logic is a method for finding objective truth, but it also serves a broader purpose. It forms the architecture of human assent. We begin with Al-Farabi's baseline state of early humanity. He pictures a society whose members have the capacity for perception and belief, but they exist entirely without spoken language. In this silent state, humans first form what he calls makulat. Makulat are primary concepts, or the basic, isolated ideas extracted directly from perceiving objects in the physical world. These isolated ideas do not remain separate for long. They naturally begin to form a regime of concepts, relating to one another in the mind based on structural derivations and observable similarities, building an invisible architectural web. The catalyst for language is social friction. People realize they need a way to communicate these complex internal webs of thought to other humans. To solve this, communities invent a lexicon. They agree by convention to assign arbitrary vocal sounds to represent these primary concepts. The theoretical goal of this new language is isomorphism. Isomorphism is a state where the grammatical syntax of spoken words perfectly mirrors the invisible mental regime of the concepts they represent. Creating a language is therefore an attempt to build a physical, auditory replica of the mind's internal architecture. But syntactic friction occurs because grammar is messy. The historical development of a language does not always track pure logical form with perfect accuracy. To see this friction, we can look at Al-Farabi's logical requirements for a verb. For a verb to function properly in a logical sentence, it must simultaneously express three things: a primary concept, a specific tense, and a logical copula. The copula is the hidden logical link that connects a subject to a predicate, establishing the relationship between them. We parse the Arabic phrase zaydun yamshi, separating subject from verb. Deconstructing yamshi, Arabic embeds a hidden copula inside, alongside the concept walking and present tense. To express pure tense, Al-Farabi uses zaydun kana yamshi. Kana lacks a concept block, leaving only tense and copula. Al-Farabi isolates the word kana as a pure temporal operator. It is a necessary abstraction required to keep the Arabic language aligned with strict logical principles. Because language is an imperfect, evolving vessel, philosophers must actively dissect these grammatical mechanics. If they do not, the everyday rules of language will cause errors in the rules of reasoning. Once a language is established, it immediately reveals a social reality. Humans disagree about the nature of the world. Discourse is required to resolve those disagreements. This brings us to Al-Farabi's definition of the syllogism. It is a dialogic game designed specifically to compel tasdik. Tasdik translates to assent, meaning the act of treating a proposition as true. The art of dialectic involves two players, the questioner and the responder. The questioner presents a binary choice. Is the sky spherical or not? The responder commits to one side. The questioner then builds a logical trap, generating premises that destroy that exact commitment. Al-Farabi scales this into a hierarchy of logical arts. At the apex is demonstration, built on literal essences, yielding absolute certainty. Below, dialectic and rhetoric sacrifice certainty for social cohesion, using standard premises. At the base, poetry and music operate on emotional resonance. Logical arguments scale in rigidity based on their specific social function, from proving physical laws to rallying an army. This leaves a lingering question. How can poetry, a discipline built almost entirely on literal falsehoods and metaphors, be considered a rigorous part of the organon? Al-Farabi tests logic at this extreme edge. He argues that poetry functions as an incomplete psychological syllogism. Consider this 9th century poem by Abu Tamam, written to celebrate a military victory. Knowledge lies in the bright spears gleaming between two armies. The poem is not stating a literal fact. Spears are metal objects. They do not possess brains. Instead, the verse acts as a logical prompt fed directly into the audience's mind. We extract the metaphor's hidden logical structure. It breaks into two premises. Spears give certainty, and knowledge gives certainty. The poet intentionally omits the middle conceptual link, forcing the audience's imagination to supply it. Certainty, telepathically. Formally, this is a mathematically invalid second-figure syllogism, but functionally, it flawlessly achieves the exact goal logic was designed for, compelling a change in perspective. This aligns perfectly with Al-Farabi's ultimate definition of logical consequence. Consequence is simply an arrangement of concepts in the mind that forces a person to look down at something new and unavoidably adopt a new belief. Whether an argument explains the mechanics of the cosmos or delivers the emotional pulse of a poem, the underlying architecture of human assent remains exactly the same.